We are the Evil Safety Dudes, and we're about all thing occupational health and safety, from how not to get sucked into a machine or get killed by an active killer. Anything that has to do with workplace incident or accident, we are going to talk about it.
Including going to the bathroom. We've talked about that several times.
OSHA has a reg on how many porta pots you have to have on a construction site.
You know, they recently added a female rule to that now as well.
Well, that's
you gotta
fair.
have separate
Yeah, I always felt
porta-johns.
bad for them.
I felt really bad. I felt bad for a lot of the coworkers, men that I had to work with. I was like, really? You got to go use that thing today?
Yeah, but
If only there was an alternative.
anyway, we have a very special topic today.
I like this one.
This
is a good one.
It's definitely safety,
Still safety.
but we're gonna bring in a guest speaker, IBC's own Mr. Chris Hoak.
And Chris Hoak is the vice president of sales at
Are we just
IBC.
gonna bring him in now?
Well, he's right here.
Okay, fine.
I mean, might as well.
All right.
I haven't even
Hi, Chris.
introduced
How you
yet.
doing, man?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming into our podcast for it. What do you think?
It's a beautiful little what do you call this? A sound booth?
Well, we prefer to call it a fort because
Studio?
that leaves it very ambiguous, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
As a fort, it can be a lot of things.
does it look like something your kids make?
Yes, it does. Very much so.
Hopefully, we made it
my
better.
kids
than,
probably wouldn't be this nice.
Yeah.
There
They
you
don't.
go.
They don't have the setup like.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
you
we
I
used
was
to.
really worried he was going to go the other way. I thought he was going to say my kids wouldn't be this messy.
Yeah, if they.
No,
if,
they're definitely
if
messy.
your toddlers made a fort better than us,
I
that's,
don't
That's
know.
pretty bad.
I mean,
for
it's
us.
not bad. This is a pretty good fort.
You know,
I
even
like
when
it.
they commission my help, it still doesn't look this good.
So, well, thank you for the compliment on our podcast for it, and thanks for coming on the show today. We wanted you here to pick your brain on experience modification rates, and that's what today's show is on.
Yeah.
EMRs, what they are, why we should care, you know, what the big deal is about them. Anybody out there that's from a company and has heard the term EMR, that's what we're talking about today.
And a
So
lot of people have heard it a bunch and never really gotten the breakdown on it. They're like, I know it's important. And some people are like, I know I have a good one. Some people are like, I know I have a terrible one.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the end of this one, they'll know exactly what that means.
Well, and it's amazing too. You know, every company, most every company with with their work comp is large enough, they have an experience modifier.
Yeah.
And some people have no idea.
So
that they
everybody
even
has one.
Well, not everybody. I mean, if they're a small, 1-2 person operation, they may not
Maybe
have
no.
one.
Okay.
But as you get larger, then yes, you do. But
So it's
some
most
people-
everybody.
yeah, most people, most everybody. But some people pay attention to it, some people don't pay attention to it, and it really it can mean a lot of dollars in your pocket.
Well, that's one of the things we want to get into.
Yeah,
What the heck does it mean?
We're going to talk, and the safety connection. Why are we talking about EMR on a,
Right,
safety,
on a safety
podcast?
You know, speaking of our safety podcast, I have to apologize, wonderful listeners. I'm joined in the IBC Podcast Fort studio with Mr. Aaron Icino.
We haven't introduced each other in several
Like
podcasts.
4 podcasts. Yeah, if somebody just like recently
But
tuned
this
in.
is our 45th.
We're just
one.
like mysterious people.
Who are you guys?
Right? What are you
I don't even know what
here?
I'm doing here.
The door was unlocked, so we just
Yeah,
came
we just
in.
let
We
folks
found
in.
this equipment. We turned it on. We
Built
looked
a fort.
around. Yeah, we built the fort.
Well, yeah, we just grab folks that wander by, as long as you look like you've dressed for work today.
I'm gonna do a special intro for you today, AJ.
A special one?
Yeah, because I usually introduce you by your safety credentials. Occupational. Or no, that's me. No, the OSHA outreach authorized instructor.
Yep.
SSH, which I can never remember what that's for, so I'll just say the acronym.
The specialist in safety and
Yeah,
health.
yeah. But today, being that we are talking about insurance-y stuff,
Oh, yeah.
you also are an insurance agent now.
I'm technically a licensed insurance agent. I have sold some pretty juicy policies, and
So it's not technically then. You
okay.
are.
I mean, well,
Yeah,
it's like one of
technically
those-
means I'm not.
it's like
I am on paper, but I'm not
Yeah.
really. But you are if you
I am.
got the.
So
That's
technically, it is.
Yeah. Right? It's just I don't feel like I do that part as much, so I feel like I have to qualify it. Well,
Yeah,
technically
yeah.
I am, but I don't really I still do it, but just not as much.
Right.
Mostly I'm just an evil safety dude.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm an insurance agent.
Safety is important.
Yeah.
And you got to focus on what's important.
That's for sure.
And I'm Aaron Iacino, and I play a doctor on TV. And we've been dealing with EMRs
Oh yeah.
forever.
On the safety side of things, it comes up often.
The story that I always tell when I get to talking about EMR was locally we had still do have a client that had at least $1 million job at a local plant.
Yeah.
A year. You know, it's the biggest company.
Every year, this $1 million contract came up.
Yeah, and they thought they were in tight with them. I mean, they took the big dogs from this plant golfing and out to eat, and they knew their kids by name. Like, they thought, like, we're friends.
We're buds.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
there's no way we're losing this one. And then one day, they got a phone call. Said, you can no longer work out here because your EMR is over 1.0.
Yep. And that was it.
And then the local contractor's like, what?
Yeah. Excuse us.
I thought,
like,
how is this job related to that? I thought it was off on a relationship and everything.
yeah.
And so then they got me involved, and the owner's like, all right, evil safety punk,
Yeah. How do we fix this?
you know, because I hate safety because I'm old school.
That's pretty normal.
Now we care all of a sudden, and I don't care what it's going to cost. You tell me how much you need from me. I will write you the check right now to get this EMR fixed because it's going to cost us way more to lose this job. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Can't be done. I mean,
I'm like,
doesn't happen overnight.
I'm terribly sorry, but this is like a 4-year deal.
This is a process.
Yeah. And it
And
does.
then they were steaming, piping hot, mad. They just wanted to write a check and make it go away.
Yeah. Well,
And they couldn't, and they lost that. And to this day, I don't know if they got it back.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about. And the answer is, as of last year, yeah.
Okay, well,
That
that's
contract,
good.
it came back. I've been hand in hand with those guys for a long time.
So,
If it is who I'm thinking about,
so
I'm pretty sure.
But for 4 years, they did not.
Could
And
not.
to reconfigure your business model to get like 20 small clients, new clients, to make up for that one big one is hard. The layoffs, because a lot of these contractors have dedicated crews for these big plants.
Right. And the profit from $1 million job is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
If you got 20 other jobs to make up to $1 million,
Yeah.
the profit's actually not going to be as big.
So, I mean, this is why we're talking about this on a safety, because lack of safety makes them go up. And when they go up, you're losing big business. So,
right. You know, assuming your audience, I'm assuming they're very in tune and in
they're the
touch
smartest
with-
people on the planet.
I figured that they probably are, but
They already know.
there might be some random person out there that just came across this and doesn't
Right.
know what an EMR is.
For sure.
Right.
So let's just kind of dive into what that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
for a
please.
minute, right? So experience modifier rate, modification rate. So basically, it's a number that's an assigned to your business. Kind of 1.0 is our baseline.
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So if you have an experience modification rate of 1.0, you're kind of middle of the road, standard. You know, you're not great, you're not bad.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
average.
Yeah.
Yep. But in this number, it can go up. It can go. You know, I've seen it as high as 1.7.
Ooh.
You know, I've seen some down in the 0.5s
Wow.
before. So, what fluctuates is it's a 3-year rolling rate.
Okay.
It's a look back of your prior 3 years.
It's like a hemoglobin A1C test. We just had wellness,
Yeah.
you know,
well,
on our
yeah,
last one.
exactly.
But for safety.
For
Okay.
basically, yeah.
Okay. So it's a calculation, and it's a function of your loss history
Okay.
for the prior 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then also your payroll. Okay, so as payroll goes up and as your loss history stays low, your modifier can go below 1.
Okay.
It can go, 0.9, 0.8, 0.94.
So you're making more money. You're paying employees more.
Well,
But you don't have the injuries, so that shows that you're pretty safe.
exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And on the other side, reverse, even if your payroll does continue to go up or stays flat, worst case scenario, if your payroll goes down and your losses then pile up, let's say you've got multiple losses or big losses over the last few
Can we
years.
define that for a second? Because when I'm thinking loss, I'm thinking of property damage.
Okay, yeah, no, this is specifically work comp
Okay.
related.
So these are
Okay.
just
EMR is
people.
only
Yep.
a work comp, so you could have your semi. You run your own semi into your own warehouse,
Yep. I mean,
and no one
Nobody gets hurt.
It doesn't affect your mod.
you're fine.
That's general liability.
That's general liability. I
Okay,
mean, you're
all
going to
right.
pay for that elsewhere.
right.
But
Okay.
But your mod rate, that's if your employee gets a cut and they got to go get stitches.
So when you're saying
correct.
loss,
When I
it's
say loss, I'm
employee.
referring to work comp.
Okay,
losses.
employee.
And
All
when
right,
you're
that
talking
makes sense.
payroll, like you pretty much just mean hours worked.
Well, yeah.
Mostly, right? Because like if I had a company and they had 1,000 hours, well, that's a terrible, terrible company. 100,000 hours, there you go. And they had one injury, that might look normal for their industry. But then if they take instead of 100,000 hours, maybe they only had 10,000 hours, and they had an injury, their
Yep.
EMR would look very different because now it's 1/10 the number of hours
Exactly.
and an injury.
Yep.
So they would look a lot more dangerous, even
Correct.
though it's one injury
Yeah.
here, one injury there.
So that's what these companies, when you say that, you had this client
Right.
and they couldn't go onto this job site anymore because their mod rate went over a 1.
Mm-hmm.
So this company's looking back and saying, okay, well, we've got a company coming in
Mm-hmm.
and they're not very safe, right?
Sure.
Their mod is a 1.4. So that means that they're experiencing a work comp related injury loss, more frequently than the guy down the street whose mod factor is a 0.74.
So why is 1 ideal? Like what does a 1 mean?
1 is just kind of a baseline. You got to have a baseline for everything you do.
So 1 is like
right?
the average.
1 is the average.
Like
you know?
specific gravity and vapor density.
Yeah,
Air
so
is 1.
If my mod
a very
rate for
scientific
my
show.
company, if my mod rate for my company was 1, that would mean that I'm the same or at least average for people in my industry.
In your industry.
Right.
Yes, correct.
But then if I start getting, like you said, anytime I start creeping over a 1,
Yep,
now I'm actually more dangerous
correct.
or on average than people in my own industry.
That's what that's telling you.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of things that you can look at and go into it. A company that has multiple, their frequency is high. In my opinion, that's worse than a company that, has had a clean track record, and then 1 year they just had a freak accident.
Okay.
And it was a big accident. you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So there's factors that you can look at that don't, the EMR doesn't always tell the story,
Right.
Yep.
but
But just the
it's part of the
numbers.
story. And yeah, from a numbers standpoint, not only did this company that you were referring to lose out on this big contract, this $1 million contract every year, so they lost that revenue. Now they're paying, say their mod is a 1.25,
Okay.
now they're paying 25% more on their work comp premium for that policy period.
So each tick, each 0.01 reflects a percentage change, roughly, in their premium for their work comp.
Correct.
So if you go from a 1 to a 1.01, you got to pay 1% more.
Exactly.
And if you go from a 1 to a 1.25, you're paying 25% more. What
Exactly.
happens if I go the other way?
Then you're getting a credit on your work comp. So that's
So then I
that's a great thing. Now
I
you're
actually
paying
make savings.
You're saving money. Absolutely.
So give
Absolutely.
me some just general numbers, like dollar amounts. Like if I'm a 1,
You want me to do math?
well,
Is that what you're saying?
no, just in your experience, like if you can go back to a client that was a 1.25, and then the next year a bad year fell off and it went to a 1, what like financially could that savings have been?
Well, if you got a company that's paying $10,000 a year for their work comp premium, okay, they're a 1.25, just simple math, right? Now they're paying
We can let AJ do all the math.
$12,500,
He's good with
right?
that.
They're
Right.
paying $12,500 this
Okay.
year because of that, right?
Okay.
Yep.
So then, let's say that year falls off, and say that incident occurred 3 years ago.
Now in their
Policy
new year-
renews. The policy renews. That third year fell off, and they had 3 good years behind it. Okay, so now their mod, and it can fluctuate pretty significantly year over year.
Okay.
But let's say that mod doesn't go from a 1.25 down to a 1. Let's just say it stays, at a 1.1.
Okay.
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 So instead of a 25% premium, additional premium, now they're only paying 10% additional premium. So instead of 12,500, now they're paying 11,000.
Okay.
Right?
The biggest one I've seen ever change was 80 grand. in insurance premium
wow.
difference.
That's
Oh,
good.
I got a really big one.
Okay, what do you got?
One of our first groups we worked with at IBC when I first got hired, and they had a mod of a 1.31, and their premium every year was over $100,000 a year.
Okay.
And then now, this last year here, they went all the way down in that 4 years that they've worked with us and just been dedicated. It's gotten down as low as a 0.77.
Wow.
So they've actually shifted.
That's a big
60,
number.
Well, no, so it's 54% they shifted down in their premium. So they went from paying over $200,000 a year to now it's way down in the mid 100s. And their savings have been tremendous over the last just 4 years. And all they did was they were like, you know what? We're just going to take safety for real now.
Yeah, for
And they're
sure.
saving hundreds of thousands of dollars.
When people figure out that a robust safety program and actually living it translates to more money in their pocket, it's a big epiphany.
Huge.
And that's something that we battle with all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't always get to speak to the owners unless they're a smaller company.
Just trying to get people to buy into it.
Yeah. But I imagine, Chris, that's something that you try to sell, when you're communicating with your clients. Like, hey, safety means
Safety
money.
matters. Safety is money.
Yeah.
And I am finding that more and more people, companies, CEOs, presidents, business owners, they're taking it more seriously now than ever before.
Well, that's cool.
Job
security, AJ.
Well, that's a testament to what you guys do,
Right.
right? I mean, and that's why you guys are such an asset to IBC. Because you guys, we can say, hey, we're not just going to rely on the insurance company to be safe and make you safe. We've got people boots on the ground that can actually help you with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, not dissing what the carriers do, but
Right.
it's not quite the level we're doing.
Exactly.
The frequency and the amount. But I got some more EMR questions. Can I cheat this thing? Like, who makes it? Can I bribe them? Can I not report? Like,
yeah,
how do
you're stuck? You're stuck.
Okay.
NCCI, they're kind of the what do you call them? The governing body, I guess, for
EMR
workers.
numbers?
Yeah, workers' compensation, and they govern this number.
Sure.
And it sticks with you, and you can't go and start another company to do the same thing that you're doing now
to get out of it.
Because
that would be a nice cheat.
nice
cheat code.
I sunk my last
I just
business.
dissolve this company, start a new one.
I've seen people try it.
Okay.
And it just doesn't work.
It just hops right back on, huh?
It does. You got to fill out an ERM-14 form,
Well,
and then,
as far as being sneaky, though, I mean, there is a little way to be sneaky with the EMR, and I've run into this with a few clients where I'm like, oh, this guy that you're working with, they're actually not that great on safe. They just don't report their claims. Like if an employee gets themselves a cut, employee's like, oh, I had to go in and get stitches. Company's like, we'll just pay for that out of pocket.
well, and that's
That's
I'm not
sneaky.
saying I'm not saying that's the right thing to do.
Right.
There are companies out there that do that.
Right.
Some carriers let you, though, don't they? They say you could, if you want that, that's cool. Just let us know, and you could cover anything $5,000 and
Well,
under,
essentially,
or
it's
something
like
that.
putting a deductible,
Okay.
right, on your workers' compensation.
Because that's a legitimate tactic to lowering EMR,
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think it's illegal, is it?
No,
No, it's
absolutely
not
not.
illegal.
Well, that's
No.
good.
Yeah.
Because I've been pushing that.
It is it's like a
some
sneaky way. Like you could have a lot of injuries, a lot of small injuries, which if those would have all been reported, your EMR would be through the roof.
And by reported, we're not talking about OSHA reported,
No.
right? But like,
Reported on your insurance.
yeah, that the insurance paid for it.
The
the
insurance,
insurance paid for it.
Insurance
So
provided
so
coverage.
you have a medical deductible,
Right.
So when we're talking insurance, work comp claim, there's different components to it. There's a medical side. There's a where you're going to the doctor. You're getting checked out. You're hurt. You're getting stitched up. Whatever it is. And then there's a indemnity side, which is a lost time. You can't work side of it.
Well, because there's some injuries where maybe somebody just accidentally stepped on a nail. It's not going to be stitches, not going to be anything, but maybe your employer was like, I really want to go the extra mile. Send him into the doctor, make him sure he's got his tetanus shots or whatever, and it's only going to be a $40 copay or something like that. And they're like, I don't even want to put this on my insurance. I'll just pay the whole thing instead of the copay. And that's a legitimate way to help keep that off of your record, because it's not like this big scary injury. It was just something you're just making sure your employee's safe.
Right. Yeah, and that's definitely one way that will help the EMR. Right. So
Right.
just keeps those claim payments down.
Right.
Which, that's reflected in the EMR.
I want to talk about what really hikes it up, because you mentioned one bad injury versus a lot of small ones, high frequency. Is there a formula? I mean, what would make it go up worse? Like one death or like 23 sprained ankles?
Well, in my view, frequency is worse than severity.
Okay.
In my opinion, because you're gonna have, if you've got the frequency, eventually you're gonna have the
For sure.
severity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you can show me that you've got a track record where you're clean and then bang, you just had one
Right.
one poor incident, accident, just whatever, where we had a big loss, it's going to happen, right? Not everybody's going to be
Right.
safe all the time every day. If you're working long enough, you're going to have some sort of an accident.
Right.
But what we try to avoid, we don't want to see those frequencies, because what that, and you guys can attest to this, I'm sure, the more frequent we see an accident, that just probably is an indication that you're less safe than
Yeah, for sure.
this guy.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
Well, like on NCCI, when they kind of tore into it and I sat through my first set of classes, they were like, let's pretend these are identical contractors and they both do construction and they both work approximately 100,000 hours a year. And this one contractor gets one injury for 25 grand and the other contractor gets 5 injuries for 5 grand each. So both of them have paid 25 grand out.
Right.
The one that had 5 actually ends up with twice as bad of a report on their EMR as the guy who had 1.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to exactly what you're talking about, that frequency shows to be a lot harder hitting than just one big claim.
Absolutely.
I mean, both aren't great.
No,
But,
ideally you like 0.
Ideally, you'd like 0. That'd
But
be perfect.
I'd much rather work with the guy with the one claim for 25,000
Yeah.
as opposed to the 5 for 5.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
just keeps turning them in.
That makes sense. Frequency shows bad culture.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
there's a
and with that, frequency. So we talked about the 3-year look back,
right.
right? So you have one claim, you have a severe claim 2 years ago. Okay, that's going to fall off of your record. Then say you've got a good year. Say we're talking 3 years. So year 1, no injuries. Year 2, we had a $25,000 loss.
Okay.
Year 3, no injuries. Okay.
Okay.
Versus we have, a 5,000 and a
Yeah.
5,000. We had 2 5,000s in year 1. We had 2 5,000s in year 2.
Right.
We have a 5,000 in year 3. So as we look back and we do our 3-year look back, eventually that one severe loss is going to fall off.
Right.
Whereas if you've got a severity or a frequency problem,
Right.
that's going to continue to show up.
You don't
year
have
after year
good
after
years.
year. Right.
It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what year falls off. You're going to
Yeah.
replace it with the equally as bad year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think frequency is probably worse.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
So let's talk about that calculation. So if it's 2021, right? I'm in the right year.
Yep.
And let's pretend my EMR was 1.3 for my company.
That's pretty high.
What years?
You're not very safe, Aaron.
No, we're not. That's why we got to have this conversation, because I'm trying to figure out when it's
We
going to
got to
get
use
good
so
again.
like 40 podcasts ago, Aaron invented a company. What was it, like ABC?
I can't remember.
Or no, it was XY. Shoot. Well, anyways, I'm trying to remember his.
So that made up
Aaron's
company,
company.
we can't remember. It's got a 1.3. It's 2021.
2021.
Now, what years? Because I also heard at one point the last year isn't even in that one.
Correct.
Right.
So
Okay.
so let's
So-
think about this. So we're in 2021.
right.
Okay. So the 2020 year that, let's just say they renewed let's say they renew September 1.
Okay.
Okay. So September 1, 2021. The policy that leads up to that, so the 2020 policy,
Okay.
okay, that's just expiring, that is not going to be reflected in the mod
Nope.
until the following year.
Okay.
Right.
Because, the calculation, going into that, they don't have that all the information. You may have a loss
Right.
today on August 30th,
Right.
and it wouldn't show up on that mod, right? So they kind of give it a lag year for claims to catch up.
Okay.
So the 2020 year is not included. So your
That makes
your
sense.
mod is made up of 2019, 2018, 2017.
Okay. So my 2021 EMR is from 17, 18, 19.
17, 18, 19. Yep.
All right. So if I had a terrible year on 2017, but
Yep.
and the year changes, now we're going 2022, and then that bad year falls off, and I had 2018 was great, 2019 was great, 2020 was great. Now my EMR is going to drop.
Now your EMR is going to drop. Correct.
That's best case scenario. One bad year, 3 good years coming. But if I have high frequency, injuries after injuries after injuries every year, it doesn't matter.
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but also to let's say the company is like that. Okay, I have a bad 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. I'm Injury City, right?
Nice.
And I've
That's a good name for a band.
Injury City.
Welcome to Injury City.
I've lost my 1.0. I'm a 1.7.
Okay.
Jeez.
Wow, and it's 2021.
Struggling getting jobs.
To get a below that, I mean, what are we looking at? Because like even if 2021 is bad, because now I'm
Yeah.
just changing. Now I'm just seeing the light on safety.
Right.
So I got to have a good 2022, 2023, 2024,
And then in 2025,
and then in the year 2025,
So
when
That's
robots
when-
take over the planet, it'll be too late anyway.
but that's finally when 21 will drop off.
Wow.
Yeah. It takes almost 4 years to wipe out your last ones.
right.
So you got to start now.
Yeah.
It is super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and even if you're looking at that and you're discouraged, you're thinking, gosh, I'm kind of stuck
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm bad now.
for the next
Yeah.
4 years.
I need this relief
Well,
now.
Do it now.
Do it now.
Yeah, start now.
Start now because
Yeah. Now, I use this sales pitch all the time when I'm trying to sell safety to executives. I try to speak the money language to CEOs, CFOs, COOs instead of OSHA regs.
right.
When I
Yeah.
talk OSHA regs to a COO, they don't care.
Yeah. Goes
Yeah.
right over their head.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they just
Or
don't
they
care.
just fall
You know,
asleep.
show me the money.
Yeah.
Show me the money. You know. So I try to show them the money, and this works, except when a client is not working for those big plants that have that rule.
Right.
But even then, it still should because you got the high premiums.
But even then, it's your
Yeah.
premium, right? And
Right.
so we look, IBC, we're an independent agent, right? So we have multiple agency or multiple insurance companies, rather, that we can go out and
Yeah.
shop insurance for,
Okay.
right? If you've got a high EMR, a lot of times immediately they'll look at that EMR and they'll say a work comp
Yeah.
carrier or a package carrier that also offers work comp, they'll say, we're not going to write the work comp on that.
Right. We want this and we want that,
yep.
but we don't want that.
The mod's too high. We're not interested in that. So
Why do they care?
because they're paying out premium or they're paying out claims, right? They see somebody with a high EMR. What does that say? That says to them that they're not focused on safety. They're going to have work comp losses.
Well, yeah, they're in the business of making money. If
Yeah,
my
just like
premiums-
anybody else, they
if
wanna
my
make money.
premium's $30,000 a year, and they see on average my policy pays out $50,000.
Right.
They're like, oh, by taking on this guy, I gotta agree to lose $20,000 a year. Like,
I'm in the hole.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm going to have to pay for their employee injuries.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I want to keep the money they give me.
Exactly. They want to keep
Yep.
it.
So that's their financial risk.
Correct.
So they're looking at every company as like a gamble.
Exactly. And I would say, another financial risk that you would have, you've got an employee or employer who they got employees getting hurt all the time. Employees come, employees go. constantly trying to find a new employee to fill the void
Oh,
for,
that's
for
tough
somebody
these
that can't
days.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, not only do you have the training
Right.
that you got to, but just finding them anymore.
So
You know?
pre-COVID, we were in a labor crisis. Post-COVID, we're in a labor crisis.
Yep.
Right.
I'm hearing stories all the time from businesses. We had to shut down our restaurant tonight. We didn't have staff.
Yeah.
You know, just terrible little things.
Yep.
The help wanted signs are everywhere.
They're all over.
You know, and that's a safety issue in and of itself when you got a smaller group of people overworking.
Exactly.
We know from statistics that they're more likely to be injured.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, you don't want to just count on having a file of applicants in your drawer that you could just pull another one out when one guy gets injured and can't work, because you may not replace him.
Right. And that guy may be gone. He may not be able to work for,
Right.
6 weeks, 8
Yeah.
weeks, and you still need somebody to fill that void, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then your company's sitting there paying out on unemployment.
Yep.
And so your cost, that expense is going on your insurance.
Yep.
And the unemployment's going up. And now you're doubling down on that because you got to pay another employee to be there.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. It
Now,
does. It adds up so
Yeah.
fast.
Now, one thing, getting back to the mod a little bit, and ways to not cheat the mod, but kind of help the mod. When you have that injured worker, say you're a contractor, and you got a employee that gets hurt, and they say they broke a foot, right?
Okay.
So they can't be out on the job site and do what they need to do.
Right.
But if you can find alternate work for them to do, say, in and around the office,
Sure.
maybe doing some filing, the employee might not love it that much,
Right.
but it gets them back in the office, and it keeps that indemnity, that lost wage, it keeps that down.
For sure.
So, that's going to help your work comp.
But it's a win-win for the employee, too. Because when they're sitting at home on that work comp, they only get paid here in Iowa, they get their 2/3 of a check.
Right.
But if they're at work filing, they get a full paycheck.
They do.
So their
do.
wages are up.
Yep.
And then for the company, they now don't have to have that huge everyday payout
So,
on their premium.
Yeah.
So,
in the biz, we call that return to work policy. or
Right,
program,
yeah.
So,
I have gotten so much pushback
Yeah.
for pushing those. I've had owners tell me straight in the face, I'm not paying a guy to do useless junk. And so, that's a waste of money.
well, it
What's
it
your
is until it
what's
is
your-
until it isn't.
It's going to cost
You
you
know,
way more in the
And
long
then
run.
that's right.
But that's the answer, right? Like, you're actually saving money by paying him to count rocks.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah. But if you want to, organize, this stack of paper clips,
I thought
Build
he was
us a
gonna
better
say-
fort.
I thought that's exactly. If you want to organize this fort, I
Build
was
a
like,
fort,
wait,
yeah.
hang on a second.
Right?
Now. Well, we worked hard on this fort.
depends on the injury,
Yeah.
But yes, I mean it's definitely a way, and you say that it's great for the employee because they get a full paycheck.
Yeah.
But they may be in there. They ticked off that they're making their employer's making them come back and
Right.
push paper clips from this side of the table to the other side of the table.
Right.
But in the long run, it's getting them back into the office. That is huge for
Right.
employee retention.
Yep.
And then it also, helps with that mod down the road for sure.
I attended a course one time by a doctor who all he does is treat employee injuries. And he was showing all of the stats, how those return to work, when you get an employee back to work, they heal quicker.
Yep.
Not just because they hate pushing paper clips and they lie and say they're healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but, just sitting on that couch all day,
Right.
the mentality and just the
Yeah.
sedentariness versus getting up every day, getting yourself presentable,
Feeling
getting
like
into
you
work.
got something of
Yeah.
worth. You know?
They heal quicker, they return to work quicker. It's
Yep.
everything is better from that. But
Yeah.
financially, what we would tell that owner, help me out with those facts. If I had an owner give me pushback on a return to work policy, I say, okay, I know it seems like you're losing money because you're paying that guy and you're not really getting a lot out of him. But if you let your carrier pay him 2/3 to sit at home, that's called indemnity.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
your premiums and your EMR are going to skyrocket.
Yep.
Yep.
And that is going to cost you a lot more.
Correct.
It will.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm paying an employee not to get a lot out of them, but I'm saving a skyrocketed premium and maybe an
Right.
EMR.
Right. And in work comp losses, the insurance company will come in and they'll set a reserve,
Yeah.
right? And they'll say, we think based on track record and history, we think that this claim is going to total $50,000,
Right.
right? We've paid, $12,000 for medical, and we're going to have an additional, $38,000 in indemnity for this guy being off work.
Just ready to
right?
go.
So they set a reserve. You get that guy back in, you can knock that reserve way down.
Right.
You
And the
know?
reserve's important because even though that money's not spent, you're still counted as technically until it goes away, it's counted as spent.
Correct.
So they're looking at maybe your last year's policy, and maybe that guy's still recovering, and they're going, well, he's got 38 grand on his reserve.
Yep.
We're going to adjust your EMR based on 50 grand instead of 12.
That's what their mod is going to reflect the 50,000, not the 12,000,
Yeah.
or
So getting them back to work, getting them functioning, getting that case closed from the doctor as soon as possible, it's important.
and then you also have the guy, right? He is pushing paper clips from one end of the table to the other.
Right.
He says, "God, this sucks. I
This
don't want to
Right.
do this." Right?
Yeah.
I want to get back to work. I want to get back to doing something. If I'm going to come in, I want to be doing what I want to be doing. So it motivates them a little bit to.
Yeah,
to-
for sure.
He might be bugging his doctor without us even checking on him.
Right.
Hey, release me to full duty. I'm feeling good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from a safety perspective, a safety consultant perspective, I love when I have a client. This sounds bad, but I love when I have a client who has an injured employee who they're trying to find work for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking safety and they're not. So I'm like, oh, you got a guy 40 hours now? Awesome. We're going to get your safety data sheet book finally updated.
I do
Right.
that one a lot.
There is like
So you're making them do OSHA logs and that type of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not fill out the OSHA log for the company, but there's so much OSHA required stuff that if they don't have a safety person, or if they do to help the safety person, there's so much safety work. So
Yep.
let's pretend a guy could walk, but he's got a bum elbow or shoulder, and he's in a sling, so he can't be on the site.
Right.
He's one armed.
Yep.
He could walk around and do a chemicalist inventory. He could walk around with the phone. He can open up a cupboard. He can snap pics of every chemical he finds. He could go back and sit down, and he could build that chemicalist inventory. He could go make sure there's updated safety data sheet. He could go to the department head, say, hey, I found these 50 chemicals. Do you really need all these? Can we get rid of some? There's a lot just on HAZCOM that they could do. And that's not getting into all the other stuff that they could do. Depending on their skill level, they might be able to be that fresh eyes to review an annual lockout tagout procedure, depending on their skill level.
Right.
So I love it. I'm like, all right, sweet. I'm getting
Yeah.
out of some work.
Got
I
this
may have
person
to
we
go sit with this guy for a couple minutes and teach him how to do this.
Right.
But he's going to do that 40 hours now?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And to your point,
And he hates it.
he
He hates
he's also
it.
going to
He
heal
says,
quick.
"I want to get back."
He's also
out.
Yeah, I'm done.
if I see another safety data sheet, I'm going to explode. Yeah, I'm better.
Yeah.
It's also healing.
Yeah.
It
It is
It
healing.
has magical healing properties to do safety work. That's why AJ and I are so healthy, because we do safety stuff.
Safety
all the
work.
time.
It heals.
It heals.
I think you say the word OSHA. I think it's healing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And it's just a big benefit of the company to get that type of safety work done. We deal with so many clients who do not have a full-time safety person.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you got a guy,
I would say the majority of people.
yeah.
Yeah, the majority.
Companies do
if
not
you got
have
a guy
full-time
off work
safety.
for a month and he's at the job, we could make some progress with
Yeah.
him.
Right.
Give us a call. We will help that person.
Absolutely.
We will give them things to do.
Yes, we will
If
build
you're
you
sitting
a
around going,
list.
I got nothing for a guy to do for the next 3 weeks. I got nothing. Oh no, we'll give him more than 3
You
weeks.
guys find the
worth of
joy
stuff.
in that, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
just- yeah.
Well,
that's
yeah,
why we're the
I mean,
evil safety dudes.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
it's less work for us, but it's gratifying because I remember the last time this happened. This guy got hurt, and they gave him the job of updating the safety data sheet book, and it had never looked so good in that whole company's history. Because that guy actually tried, and he did a good job, and
Yeah.
he was proud of it.
Good.
Yeah.
Later on, they hired a safety guy. That was less work for that safety guy.
Sure.
Because that book, he just had to update it instead of create it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a win-win for everybody. And if OSHA were to come in, right after that point and check out their chemical program and see that book, they wouldn't have got busted for that.
Yep.
So, there's some silver linings. But as far as financially,
Yeah.
my understanding, just to re-clarify, that indemnity is bad for EMRs going up.
Right.
And indemnity is mainly, I don't know the wording, enacted or kicked in or used when a carrier is paying for a guy to be at home.
Paying, that is exactly right.
So
Paying their lost wages.
yeah, so that's
Right.
bad.
So let me ask you this: did you guys see it?
You guys aren't allowed to ask questions. We just get asked.
I'm
questions.
taking this thing over right now.
See, this is where if we were in a car, Hoak would be taking over.
Right. So I've seen where we've had clients have called and said, "Hey, I need a 3-year snapshot of my EMR."
Okay.
Because they're going to give it to a carrier.
Right.
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 And you guys probably deal with this a lot, right? You guys are dealing with, the ISNet worlds,
Right.
And the Avetas.
Vetas, and all that.
Yeah,
that
first
fun stuff,
verify.
right?
There's a million of them.
So they're looking to see what their track record is, right? So you may have
Yeah.
a spike 1 year. You might have a good EMR, and then boom, a spike,
Right.
right? So is that what these companies are looking for so they can get like a variance to say, okay, I've got one bad year in here.
Usually, yeah.
My EMR is 1.3 this year, but look where it's been,
Right.
right? Is that why they're asking for that 3-year look back?
So
Well, they're not.
I've had to deal with this one a lot. I don't know about Aaron as much because I've really done a lot of the online account management for us since I've come on board. And I know Aaron had to do it before, so he's definitely been on board with this one before. But here's a weird trend that's happened lately is like ISNet World will go off whatever your current EMR is, and
Right.
certain ones will, but one of the brand new ones on the block, Avetta, they're kind of a big deal. They will actually use the better of the two, whatever is your new AMR or whatever your 3-year average is. Whichever one of those two is better,
Right.
they will use that one. So like if, for the last 3 years you reported 0.9, 0.9, and then this year you're 1.01. So instead of getting kicked out of the job for being over a 1, they'll be like,
Right.
well, your average is actually like a 0.94.
Right.
So you're going to be good. But for those more strict websites like ISNet World or SMI or Browse or any of those other ones where it's just like whatever you got is what you got.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah.
Which-
now we got to
which-
write these letters and
And again, it goes back to frequency
Right.
versus severity, right?
Yeah.
So that shows that the frequency can become a problem.
yes.
For sure. And we have written many of those letters explaining to this plant why this EMR this year is high. And, it's like it was this one incident. And this is all the things we've done to make sure it never happens again. And please let us keep working there. We've written so many of those letters. And usually they work, but it's a probation period. It's only for a certain amount of time. And being that the EMR rate is not going to improve for years,
Yep.
sometimes it's just not good enough. If you were a contractor and they were going to kick you out, and AJ and I wrote a letter and got them to let you stay there, it's only for so long.
Right.
Yeah. Usually it's either 6 to 12 month
Yeah.
variance.
And that's great
Yeah.
because 6 to 12 months, that
That
might
might
be
cover
that
that
$1 million
job.
dollars
Yep,
or finish
exactly.
that job. But the year after that,
Now, another thing that stinks about EMR, and just I think Aaron touched on it really good there for a second, is it compares the difference between a big company and a little company. Because when you're in a category like, let's pick on plumbers. If you are a plumber and you only have like maybe a company that's got 50,000 hours a year for all your employees, you only have a handful of employees, one injury is going to make you look really bad because you're being compared to other groups of plumbers and maybe another contractor who's got 300,000 hours and they have also one injury. Well, they're going to look really safe because out of all of their hundreds of thousands of hours, they only had one claim. And then out of your tiny little few dozen hours, you had a claim.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that can be really discouraging for some groups is they're like, well, we had one injury and we're really, really safe. We've got a track record of 5 years of no injuries, and then we get one, and now we're a 1.4.
Yeah, because it can hit different size companies differently.
That's really
Right.
hard when you're smaller.
So because it's that function of losses versus payroll. I call it payroll. You guys call
Right.
it hours.
we just go hours, yeah.
Right. So the more hours you work, that it takes more losses
right?
to move the needle per se.
Yeah. And these plants, I don't know who the first one that did this. Who was the first plant that go, we need a better way to evaluate the safety of our contractors. I'm tired of looking at their policies and their OSHA logs.
Getting the giant binder of things
Yeah,
in the
you know,
mail.
like what can we do? And then somebody said, I know. Let's check out their EMRs.
Yep.
And if they're worse than average, we're not going to do it. And it was a decent idea because of all the things we talked about. It's like a 4-year.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it's calculated on 3 years, but it's 4 years.
Yeah.
You know,
you look at the EMR, you look at the wording, right? It's experience, right?
Okay.
Experience modification,
Right.
modifier rate. So what's your experience? What's your prior experience?
right.
Yep.
You know, is it a good experience? Is it a bad experience?
That's true.
Because talk is cheap, right? You know, so like if you got a bad EMR and you're a contractor and you're trying to sweep that under the rug to your big plant client, be like, yeah, but we have done all of this stuff.
Right.
We've really changed.
We promise.
We're
different now.
You know, we hired a full-time safety person. We implemented all of these trainings. We do job site inspections. We write people up now. Like we have a safety incentive program, a legal one. Like, you know, that's all great.
That's
but
great.
but it's talk.
Yeah.
And the
wanna see
plants
it.
know
We wanna
that.
see
They're
it.
like, well, okay, cool. If you're as good as you say you are now, in 4 years,
We'll see you in 4 years.
We'll we'll have proof that you're actually doing that,
Right.
And then we'll be happy to let you back in.
Exactly.
So it's a tough one because you know I've had to say those speeches before.
Yeah.
You know, literally write those letters.
Owners do not want to hear that.
You know, yeah.
No.
Well, we've you know,
Well, they like to fix it now.
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, who doesn't though?
Everybody.
We like fix it
It's
now.
today. That's today, right?
That's today.
Instant gratification.
In fact, it was yesterday.
So that low EMR, this is the other speech that I give when I meet a client for the first time, and they're like, "Yeah," I'm like, "What's your EMR?" They're like 0.7. I'm like, "What?" I make a super big deal out of it.
Yeah. It's
I'm
huge.
like,
deal.
Fantastic.
"What?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I give them the speech.
Yeah.
All right, listen.
Do you want to keep this?
I say we have to do everything in our power to maintain this. We have to fight, you know, tooth and nail to keep this. Because if you blow this, it's going to be terrible. Because not every client, and I don't know if this is your experience, but not every client that has that great EMR understands what they got going for them.
Probably not.
Right.
And how fragile it is
Yep.
and how long it takes to fix.
Yeah.
I mean, at most, they probably just know it's good.
Yeah.
You know, and then they get lost, and then they're like,
What
okay.
happened?
And then they see it in the next year. They're 2 years down the road. They see
Right.
it and they think, "Whoa, what happened here? Why am I paying so much more now?"
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, now you're probably around to 1. Now you're actually paying your premium.
Yeah.
See, before you were getting a 30% credit on your premium.
Yep.
Now you're actually paying it.
yep.
So
You know, and it's super important for the owner. You know, the management team, upper level.
right.
They may get it. The employees who are out
Yeah.
in the field, they may
Right.
not
Right.
have any idea.
Right.
So they don't know the importance of it unless that upper management team is really pushing it down
Right.
onto them and explaining it to them. You know, why do we need to be important or to be safe? Why is it important to be safe?
I started
know?
doing it in new hire safety orientations. We have a client that have us do the new hire safety orientations for him. And one I did recently, I explained the business side of safety.
Yep.
And he was like, I appreciate that. He's like, I've been in this trade for a long time. I've been through so many safety classes. I've never had anyone take time to explain the business side of it. Because this client in particular, they were one that their whole company is like based off like one or two big clients. You know, so
Right.
They need to keep that.
I'm like, what would happen? You know, that client requires, as a hirement requirement, they're going to hire you, your company, only if your EMR is 1 or less. Now, what happened if you guys were like, safety's stupid and you're not going to do it, and you had so many injuries, the EMR went over 1, and they lost that client? What would happen to you if you're hired just to work at that site?
Yep.
And now that site's gone.
Now it's gone.
Do you think you're good enough, like out of all that other huge crew that's there, that they're gonna be like, well, this client's gone now. We don't need this whole crew, but you're so good, we're gonna find something else. Maybe that'll happen for a handful
Right.
of them, a couple of the foremen,
Right.
You know,
But the
maybe a
rest of 'em-
lean man, but the rest one,
Yeah.
they're just gone. We lost that. We don't need you. It's a layoff.
Yep.
And so having them, just like you said, understand the importance for their own self. Like maybe, because guys are guys. So maybe they're not thinking, I'm going to be safe. I'm not going to be safe so I don't get hurt. I'm going to be safe and follow these rules so I get to keep this job.
Right.
So the whole job doesn't go away.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a whole nother motivation. Money is a motivator for people. For work.
It's a big time.
That's why we're
big
all
time
here.
motivator, right?
I'm not here to save the world. Sorry, guys.
What?
If you thought that's what I was doing here.
I am. It's okay. I'll pick up his slack.
I'm here
Independently wealthy
That's
over
right.
there, or what? Yeah.
I'm here to
sure.
pay my
Yeah.
mortgage, and
Yeah.
everybody else is in the same boat. That's why we're at work. Because if we didn't need to pay our mortgage, we would be doing the other stuff we like doing. You'd be running a triathlon.
Playing golf.
There you go.
Come on, go fishing, go boating, do something.
Yeah, so when they make that connection, the safety, job security connection, I think it's more important.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good point, making sure that they understand that. And you mentioned though that the employer, upper management, needs to also push that to them, and I agree, because us safety guys, we could tell them that, and maybe they'll listen to it. Maybe
Right.
just be like, whatever, safety dude's talking.
Yeah. We're sitting through we're sitting through this, this safety class on, lockout, tag out,
30
or
this-
whatever,
right.
4 days, 8 hours.
Yeah, because we have to,
Right.
right? And so, our management team, they're sitting here too because we have to,
Right.
not because we want to, not because we think it's important.
Right.
It's a requirement, you
Right.
know. Well, if management thinks that,
Right.
what do you think the employees are going to feel like? They're going to feel the same way or worse. So it's super important for everybody to buy in.
100%.
Right? You can't. It's a top down deal.
For
So,
sure.
I had a neat one kind of happen once, and hasn't happened since. But right at the end of 2018, one of our clients, they do a really big employee bonus at the end of the year where they take all the profits and they literally just split it. Everybody. They're like, all right, this was company profits, or it's a percentage actually of company profits. But this percentage, boom, all the employees. And they were like, hey guys, we want you all to sit down with AJ, and he's going to tell you all about what happened, because this was our EMR. And the difference in what our profits was this many thousands of dollars, because our EMR suddenly shifted from below 1 to above 1. That cost the company this many tens of thousands of dollars, and this is what it did to your bonus.
Well, you have to be careful with that a little bit. You don't want to discourage people from turning in a claim,
Right.
because they're concerned about a bonus on the
Right.
back end,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
so there is a little bit of
Oh, for sure. We go over that one.
And,
safety
and
as
I
well a
think
lot,
the
but-
current law with OSHA is, if it was spontaneous, like they didn't know.
So this wasn't a reward. This is literally like all the employees, they get an annual bonus based on profits. So if
Right.
the company,
Yeah.
it's based
It's
on
company
labor.
profit.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
guys are dragging their heels, if a job ends up taking a ton of extra hours or whatever. So they're trying to get them all on board with keeping the company moving. And a lot of the guys were bummed. They were like, why were our bonuses this year so small? And they're like, well, we're going to show you. This is what labor looked like. This is what this. And this was actually a huge
our
cost.
expenses were a lot more this
Right.
year than they were last year,
Yep,
because
and
our
Or
But then
premiums.
For
Yeah.
once, a company was like, and we're going to show you what safety cost us. Normally they don't tell them what safety costs. They're like, hey, this was our EMR. We used to be this good.
Yep.
And the EMR is poor now, and now it's not great. And on top of all of our other costs, this one's rolled in there as well.
Exactly.
So,
And it's hard for people to quantify the cost of safety,
yeah.
Right.
right? So this is the EMR is one thing that you can
Yeah,
look
it's
at,
small,
and
fast.
that's
It's-
going to say, okay,
It's easy peasy.
yeah, you can look at that number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I love it when upper management is pushing it, because, like I was saying, if I'm teaching at OSHA 30, 8 hours a day for 4 days,
Mm-hmm.
and the people feel like they have to be here, yeah,
Yeah.
they're tuning you out. They
For
don't
sure.
care.
They're super sleeping.
Yeah. So there's only so much a safety guy is going to get through to an employee.
Yeah.
Because we're delivering so much information all the time, and they have to be there. They don't want to be there. But I have seen personally where companies actually respect the owner.
Mm-hmm.
This burly, tough guy who's
Been there
looking,
forever.
I walk into the room to teach a class, and they go, Aaron, if you don't get us out by this time, I'm going to rip your head off. You know, like that type of guy. Like I've literally had that happen to me before. But then that same burly, tough guy who thinks safety's stupid and for wusses talks about the owner in a super respectful way.
Right.
You know, that guy made this company. That guy was out in the field. That guy knows this job. I respect him.
Yep.
And so when that guy says, hey, y'all need to be safe so we can stay in business. Safety is about money. And starts explaining some of this stuff.
You're not safe. We don't have a job.
Yeah.
you know,
Man,
and-
I think that just goes further than the safety guy telling everybody to be safe.
Oh,
Duh.
yeah.
What's the safety guy going to say? Don't be safe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he's always going to say it if he has a real good reason or not. That's
Right.
what he does. But when the owner says it and can back it up with some financial data and he has the respect of those guys, I think it's just going to go further.
That could be a good tool for some of our safety guys because we try to help. We got a lot of different safety people. Well, we pretend or we think we have a lot of different safety people that listen to us. There's like 4 people, but
3.5.
Yeah.
One's underage.
but there's like some 8-year-old kid sitting around being
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge tool that they could have. You know, if they're trying to get their company more on board with safety, be like, hey, who's a good influencer they have, and how could they convince them of safety? Oh, EMR. That is an amazing tool that they could grab somebody and be like, hey,
Yep.
if this is a way we can help make this real for you, let's look at these numbers.
And then market it that way.
Yeah.
We're bringing in this guy who you guys respect to have a meeting with you. And it's not a safety meeting.
Right.
It's a financial meeting. It's a business meeting. Just call it EMR.
EMR meeting, yeah.
Yeah, we're just,
Future of the
and then
company.
have that person break that down. I think that could go a long way.
Right.
Mainly for the clients who are working for those plants that require a 1.0 or less.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly for all the clients on the ISNet worlds and all that. 'Cause,
Right.
the grade.
Some of them can be so strict.
Touch on that for a second, AJ. Is it possible that I could work for a client that doesn't require me to have 1.0 or less, but they do require me to be on ISNet World or an equivalent, and the grade, my EMR is part of that grade, and the client, so they may not want me to have a EMR 1.0 or less, but they require me to have a certain grade, and the EMR, a high one, could affect the grade. Is that
Yes.
possible?
Oh, and it actually gets even trickier than that.
Okay.
So the grade 1, basically, you got on ISNet, we'll use them as an example because they're huge, but you got your ABC. So A is you're automatically, like, if you throw out a bid, you're automatically considered for your
Okay.
bid. On a B, if they want to accept your bid, they have to review your data.
Okay.
On a C, you're always on probation. So
Okay.
basically, even if they accept your bid, for any reason, they could basically say, hey, we don't even have to explain to you why we're kicking you out.
Wow.
We're just done. And then if you score any lower than a C, you're not allowed on site.
Wow.
So you can't even be somebody's subcontractor on a site.
Wow.
And here's a crazy one. This is what I've been running into with 2 of my different accounts is they have really, really good EMRs. I got a client with a 0.85, last year 0.77. They've got a really nice low average, but because they have so many employees, their TRIR is actually kind of high. So their OSHA recordables was kind of up, but their EMR was down.
It was down.
So then the online accounts are actually kicking them
We're
out.
saying, oh,
Yep. They're like, oh, you reported, a couple injuries last year, even though your EMR is, sparkly and wonderful, your OSHA recordables are up. So boom, that's changed your grade and now you're out.
Right.
right.
So there's when you get into the online end of it, oh my gosh, there's too much. There's so many dangles to come at. It's crazy.
Well,
I'm glad I don't deal with that online stuff. That's
Well-
beyond my pay
well,
grade for sure.
it takes all types, and I'm thankful for what you do, and I don't have to deal with that.
I have one more question for Mr. Hoak before we wrap it up.
All
though.
right.
Yes, sir. Shoot.
So if we do have people that we run into, because Aaron and I frequently we run into people out in the field, if somebody did have a question about EMR, could they come to you to get a breakdown or an explanation of their loss runs and show them how their EMR is being affected?
yeah, we would have to sit down and we'd go over it. I would need to see their loss runs.
Sure.
Probably.
But there is like an explanation. There's help for
We
that.
can sit down. We can go over it. You can just give us a call. Call us at the office. Call myself.
Because that's happened before. I've had people looking at it going, well, I know it's not great, but I don't know why.
Yeah,
And-
and they might not know how long it's going to affect them.
Right.
Right.
And while we're talking about that, once they get the nuts and bolts of their EMR, how bad it is, why it got the way it is, how long it's going to take to fix it, we in the safety department, we have an EMR lowering program.
Right. And it
Now,
works.
it's not going to be overnight.
Nope.
That's-
3 to 4 years.
It requires them
But
to commit.
we have a program of all the latest tips and tricks and good old fashioned safety. That'll, as long as the company's on board and doing it too, with our help, we could get that down if all parties involved are really trying. Really
You got to
hard
have a vision. It's got
Yeah.
to, it's
Yeah.
it's
For sure.
one thing to stress more than
Right.
anything is it's not an overnight.
No.
No.
You can, you know what? You can ruin your EMR overnight.
Right.
You can't fix it overnight.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
right?
That's well said. And you could get on a safety train for 6 months
Yep.
and not fix your EMR.
Right. Exactly.
You know, we got to be safe now, because so and so got hurt, and we see it all the time. The
Oh, yeah.
reactive safety, where now the company's over safe,
Right.
and then all of a sudden it levels, and then all of a sudden, within a few months, it's right back to where it was pre-incident.
It doesn't take long.
But with lowering the EMR, that's not the case. But so we have a program for those of you out there who need those services.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank you for coming on our podcast and
Hope.
breaking down EMR stuff for us. That was a good time. And so for Mr. AJ Hanscom, I'm Aaron Icino. Together we are the Evil Safety Dudes. Now, Sarah came up with an evil name for her.
Uh-oh.
She came up with Wellness Witch. Yeah. Do you have an evil name? Have you ever been called anything evil that you care to share?
I'm sure I've been called
I'm sure-
some things evil.
The evil insurance guy.
Yeah. What was she? The wellness witch?
Yeah.
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 You could be
She
like-
came up with that. We didn't help her. Yeah.
Be like the
I was going
insidious
this-
insurance.
Yeah. So if you.
Guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to, I don't know.
All right. Well, this is the one and only shot to announce it. So.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
boo. That's okay.
Well, do we got anything?
I don't know.
The evil insurance guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
What are you going to call me?
Yeah. The super nice,
Careful.
helpful dude.
Yeah.
Be careful.
All right, guys. Well, we thank you for listening today. We hope you got something that'll help you and your company take safety to the next level. And until next time, everybody, stay safe.